Dave Behar. Thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate being here today.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's too bad who's listening that don't understand we probably had a 20-minute conversation about everything about San Diego, North County, San Diego, LA, everything. So Dave,
in San Diego, Ed, insane Diego.
Yeah, in San Diego. But not every, I'm old school, which knew all the different names for every city down there. If you understand what I mean.
Sure, yeah.
Oceanside wasn't Oceanside. It was Escondido wasn't Escondido.
The surrounding towns, though, from Oceanside, you have great stories too, right? Great.
Oh, dude, I tell people I would love to still be down there. And so I'm in the mortgage industry for most people who know that.
Right.
And friends of mine bought in San Clemente years ago and bought a block from the beach, paid $950,000 for it. Things worth over $2 million now as a duplex, and they Airbnb one side of it. But when they wanted to buy the place across the street, and it's going for like $2 million something. Well, you look back in early 90s, it was 280,000.
That's right.
So was the same house in Modesto. That is what's so unique about, at certain points in time, things are the same price, but it was such a nicer place to be. But people didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Back then. I mean, yeah.
Well, depends also who's selling it and what for, what reason. Yeah. And if they have a professional like you involved.
Well, no, I saw what it was. It was the time it was purchased. Then you go back to 2008 when everything, took the big drop that we did all over. But I remember in the 90s, you could, it was like, I bought a place in Rancho Santa Fe. It was a gated community, HOA and all that stuff. And I think I got in for $390, which there's, exactly. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was very nice. But, that was 96, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then back then they weren't doing regular mortgages. You were doing different things because of the rates and everything else.
Well, now fast forward to 2025.
Yeah, what's rates, everything else?
No, what's the value?
Oh, today? I have no idea. I'd have to go search it.
Yeah. Anyhow,
but everything goes up, and that's why and especially now, and we're going to get into your story in a second. But right now, if you have real estate, don't sell it, especially in California. It's going to take us 25 years to get caught up in the amount of houses that we need. So the values are just going to keep going through the roof.
Yeah.
So don't sell it unless you have to.
If anybody knows, it's you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, the question was what we're going to talk about today, but Dave, I don't know if everybody knows Ion, right?
What do you have your eye
on? No, but I mean, it is, I saw it before and I was like, wow, I've seen it all over TV and everything, but I never really understood, because that's not my background. Media is not what I got. I got out of the service. I got in the mortgage industry after that, but media was not my thing. Doing direct mail was my thing in the mortgage industry. I was a king of that down there. But then now getting on talk radio, iHeart, and the different things, it's amazing. And all the different types of cable and everything else that's out there and how things have changed. How did you get into this whole genre of what you do?
Well,
did you go to school for it?
It all starts with the brand, with me. I enjoy building brands, building companies, building networks, all things at scale.
Mm-hmm.
Ion, great 3-letter brand, great 3-letter word, a lot of personality behind it, DNA. We live it, breathe it every day. And what it means and what we do, it's really a joy.
But how did you get into it?
Pardon?
How did you get into this?
Well, it started back in the kind of the days of when I had sold a couple companies and went into creating what was the I brands, and then started messing around. This is now turn of the century. This 20th century, 21st century.
So I interviewed Brian Smith, the UGG founder, the guy that brought UGG to America.
Yeah.
Right. And people don't. And when he was telling me his story, I was reliving my San Diego story because I remember when UGG came out. I remember I was at the surf shops. You're getting some more in. The guy's going to come by with his van and drop them off, and that's what he did to bring him in. And how they got in Costco when they weren't supposed to be in Costco, which was Price Club back then, and all that whole story how he lost it. So it's important for people. And before we get into, because people understand he lost this actual company and he had to get it back, and so the stories behind how we people don't care how you got there, which is the most important thing that they should care about. They just care about where you are.
Well, if there's those learning moments so they can avoid those pitfalls or those setbacks, I mean, that's all the better. It doesn't mean that we don't still maybe make mistakes and such, but if you're learning from it, I can bring what is the intellectual property conversation, or the intellectual property conversation into the in our history of people infringing on us. Big challenge. That part of our history is litigating, unfortunately, where we don't want to be messed with. Really, we have our open arms to collaboration and those that have ambition. But the whole ION network kind of was built from localization and certainly collaboration. So our scale and the vision originally was all about a channel for every town in North America and then globally, as well as what is currently a pretty active production company and distribution. So heavy into sports, which is part of my background, and certainly into lifestyle and things that happen in local towns. So
that's, so it's back. You said turn of the century. Come on, it's not that.
Yeah.
We're not talking 1920s.
No, the turn of the 21st century.
Exactly.
We can look at the history books a little bit, but no. So that brand started basically around 2000, and that's when the assets started acquiring the assets to make it happen and to envision through. So we went through a number of iterations in our ramp towards revenue. So we were involved in everything, of course, and still are in e-commerce. Definitely from a challenge, but in those days, if you remember, Ed, it was actually the pipes were kind of too small to run content and shows, et cetera, through. We're talking about now digital, and what is, of course, now considered streaming. Streaming didn't exist, but I saw what was the vision and what was ahead. Certainly what was going to happen with broadcast TV and cable, and whether you want to get into that conversation or not. But at the end of the day, so we've done a number of things and accomplished a number of things. I'm really proud of kind of our league involvements, and I can harken back to of our search capability, people finding things, which, as you know, is some of the late great internet platforms. That's where their success was derived from.
Yeah, because so what I'm hearing is you created this the same time where it was so hard to do certain things.
Yeah, there was no models. There was, we had to.
Dave, hold on. Yeah, so sorry about that. I have American Bully who comes in the studio all the time and he snores. Nobody can usually hear him, but if I don't close the door completely, he just uses that head to knock that studio door open and gets in here, and then I have to hear everything else. All right.
He's eager to be your co-host.
Oh yeah, he just wants to be down there. He's got to be next to me at all times. He's worse than a child.
I mean, Ed, let's face it. People love dogs and cats, whether it's their own or like watching videos and shows and movies with dogs and cats. Why not?
Yeah. Well,
you become even more popular than you already are.
Yeah. Well, I was going to have him one time come up here on the thing, but he won't stay up here. You follow me? He's one of those. I do what I want. And when we're talking here, I'm trying to tell your story because I think you have a fascinating story, and you keep trying to take it somewhere else and go somewhere else, and that's okay. I'm the host. I'm taking it where I want to go. Just answer my questions. Let's keep moving.
Let's go.
All right. So, because I think it's a fascinating. I'm fascinated by the brand and what you have, and I'm trying to get. So when you built it at a time where things were different. It's not like today where things are so much easier. I have 1 gigabyte by 1 gigabyte up and down at my house. I can get up to 5 gigs and do so much volume, which back then we didn't have that.
Right.
In the 90s into the 2000s, you're lucky. I mean, let's go way back. When I was in the Navy, we were using floppy drives to run the computers, right? And then compared to today. So the stuff that you had to learn and do things differently, it was when technology was able to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I had an idea to watch TV on your computers back in the early 90s, and now we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal because we're using streaming and all the different things. So easy to do it. Well, back then it wasn't. But what's nice is how you built the brand of what you did. And I want people to understand, because not always do we go into business and then go, wow, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Or you had an idea for something. I'm trying to find out if this was an idea for you that you had for a while, or it just happened to, you were like, wow, let's do this now.
No, it wasn't by chance. I mean, I'm just one of those guys. And certainly when it comes to ideation, which is a great ion word, of course.
You keep throwing these ion words out.
Well, it's in my heart and soul.
Here's my question. How did you come up with ion?
Well, it's interesting because I think we start off with what do you have your eye on?
I understand that. Yeah.
I'm originally first couple startups were in the apparel business.
Okay.
And we worldwide, certainly all 50 states, all the right stores, et cetera, et cetera. And but when we were sponsoring a couple of collegiate basketball tournaments, actually after the exit, some of the graphics, I know this may sound like it's a drill down, but it's when you're asking where it came from. Mm-hmm. This is, the I is personal. It's about me and what I do. So the original brand was I Dig, and we were messing around with, basketball, and it was, what do you have your eye on? And so that transcended, of course, the goods that we've created always sell. And that was okay. So have something here. Now, it was actually originally not a digital origin per se, but it was the off digital that inspired, or I inspired the whole thing. So end of the day, we're it's like, well, great 3-letter brand, and let's just go for it. And I might say the rest is history, because we're just beginning to make history, and it's a long road, and it's a fun road. It's a great road, and I like how we're tracking, despite when you hit some hurdles and stuff like that, especially in that intellectual property side of things. But and now we have we are rolling out our eye intelligence plan, and I can call it a strategy, but part of it is because we've been in the conversation about artificial intelligence. Right. And it's like, I'm this guy who says, hey, what about the human intelligence factor, right? And so in our case, it's, AI is here, and it's completely, it's been here for over a decade or two, right?
Since the 50s, actually.
Exactly. I mean, and you would know that as well or better than anybody back to be in the militaries. But the point is,
not because of back in the military. I just know it's been around for 50 years because everybody just heard about it. It's just consumer using right now.
Correct.
And to figure out to get the intelligence of it, but it's been around forever. Why else was there a Terminator and all the other stuff in the 80s? And then because it's been around.
Yep.
You just didn't know about it.
Yeah, well, you're spot on with that. And so more or less, we're talking about our different facets of our business, and we do have to treat it effectively, but also we have to remind ourselves we're human. And so there is a factor of human intelligence besides the artificial intelligence. Obviously, humans cause the artificial intelligence to happen because, it's part of where the origin is, but at the same time, so, it's been fun, and would have done things that maybe a little bit different. Sure. Wouldn't we all? And we have to not only learn from those things, but also, benefit others as a result, and hopefully, along the way to enable, millions to succeed. So that's part of what we do.
It was the right time to get a 3-letter word on the internet.
Yeah.
Because those are very expensive now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one
Well, I
thing
mean,
is,
you heard of go high level,
oh yeah,
and
that's
so they
it's
high level, right, was 25 grand. Go high level is 2,500.
yeah, that's
So
right.
that's not just anything you see now. I mean, I remember, back then when the internet, well, a lot of people don't know when that first came, when the whole thing was coming out, everybody was trying to iHome whatever, I
Or
this,
E or E.
yeah, yeah. Really,
Or E.
I was the starting of it, like internet, whatever. It's like, all right. And now, so you have the perfect, and what I'm saying is you were at the right time growing with your idea to start something and have it develop over time, because that's where it's at right now to kind of,
Patience.
yeah, right now to do it. You have so much competition and everything else, because I don't want to say it's easier, but it's easier to get stuff out there. It's just harder to compete against so many different people.
Yeah, it is, and I think differentiation has something to do with it, and to be able to not necessarily pivot, let's say, completely differently, but to be very flexible, and open for development. And so we are doing that on a regular basis. Besides keeping what is our stable in our portfolio is you know sustainable as possible. I'm not going to suggest there's any struggle. It's just a matter of this is for the people and of the people and all that good stuff. And it's just, again, enabling and being about enablation. So
Yeah, because you guys have a lot of channels from when I checked out and looked
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
As you Before you get there, I want to ask a question. So Inner Edison is about your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats. What was early on? What was one of your major mistakes?
you want to repeat that? I was
You're great. That's okay. I'm sorry. Inner Edison stands for your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats. That's
uh-huh.
how this whole thing started. My wife came up with the name Inner Edison, because
Great name.
yeah, it's perfect. And I have to give her claims all the time, because that's not where I was going with it. But I was like, that's perfect. And everybody loved it. But that's basically what happens is we make mistakes. From that comes other things. But one of the things about being on the show is to talk about a failure and understanding, because people think nobody makes mistakes, or there are sometimes people go so far to almost bankrupt and almost gone, and then they come back from that. And those are challenges. I'm not saying everybody goes there, but there's times. I mean, 2008 is a horrible time
Yeah,
for
it
a lot
was.
of companies and a lot of things. My industry, just recently in the last 2 years, was horrible for my industry. We
Yeah.
lost 200,000 loan officers and a ton of real estate agents. The agents should have went a long time ago, but that's beside the point, just because there's so many of them. That's that old story. How, if you're from California, you have a driver's license and a real estate card.
Well, there's a lot of land, a lot of property, a lot of assets on the street.
Yeah.
Whether you're going through the domination process on that is another story. But and then technology often wins, at least as a toolbox. So the fact that you've not only survived and prospered is very impressive. But yeah, and there's a density. We're talking about California. There's obviously density. Even though
Values
there's
continue to go
rural.
up here. So yeah,
What's that?
there's only so many homes. There's only so much land that you
Yeah.
can build on, and that's where our issues. But I want to go back to my question to you, which was, as you're building this, what was one of the mistakes that you made along the way that you learned from, or maybe you didn't learn from?
Well, I would say this is going to sound a little
It doesn't.
strange.
No, there's no. So the thing is, there's no wrong or right answer,
Yeah.
because one person losing 20 grand, which doesn't sound like much to somebody, could be everything. One guy who he got all his stuff from one manufacturer, and that guy went out of business, and then just
Right.
retool the whole company and then get people back to work.
Yeah.
Drastic. So it depends on everybody in their situation. I know
Yeah.
Brian, the UGG founder, was losing his company. Nobody
Yeah.
knew about that.
Right. No, I think they would be the best answer really is it's kind of small losses, because we actually started a few companies that was certainly part of the revenue. And interestingly enough, I don't want to say they didn't churn enough, as in they were not successful, but we had such a bigger picture ahead that companies that were 5 figures, 6 figures, even, very niche brands and channels. We said, we can come back to that. And we are coming back to it, except that there's an authenticity, and you're talking about like more of a personal story about the authenticity of brand development and building things from a grassroots. And so at no time are we corporate driven. We're a little more anti-corporate, if you will. But
I can tell by the surfboard in the back.
well, the beach is a block away, Ed, and it's.
I know you look like you're on the coast in one of the towns in Southern California.
Just coasting.
No, I'm just saying that, but that's what the buildings look like, and people understand.
Yeah. So it's all good, and it's just part of our DNA. And so in a way, it's I would, there's a lot of little stories, but I wouldn't call them failures. I would also say, in a retrospective action, I would say that should have, I would say, groomed a lot more people, as we're now doing now, to not just be part of the Ion family, but also, inspiring what is, in our case, being a San Diego State Aztec, is doing a lot more paid internships so they can get their experience and certainly add and say, hey, show me the way. I mean, I've got old school, new school in me,
right,
both in a pretty big way. But listen, that's who's leading the world in the future is people half our age. So end of the day, let alone a third our age, my age. Anyway, so that's it. And it's all good. And what do? You can't spend too much time on the past, if you will. You just have to be very hopeful and hopefully well planned and positioned for the future.
Well, no matter how well you plan, things come up, things can happen.
Yeah.
You just never know. And back to your thing, younger. So my son's 22, and I see 23 and younger, the totally different generation than 24 and above in that area, where I see that new generation more like the greatest generation, not anywhere that close, but that's as close, because generational shifts. So that generation, it will be the ones who is kind of, they're not exactly like us, where like just freaking do it and figure it out. That's basically what we're going to see again, those type of people, where we have this whole generation that we're trying to get in the business and do stuff right now, who are not used to that type of struggle and certain things, and they don't understand that,
or maybe structure too,
right.
I think that plays a role too. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you have so many channels, and that's not a dig. That was just, you have it. What's the plan for? I mean, you have athlete, you have a ton of stuff. What is the focus going forward? Is there a certain, is there more niche? Because we always talk about branding. You got to get to your perfect avatar. You got to do that. Are you doing more that type of channel, focus, like different niche branding, or?
Well, it's actually, I want to keep it like simple right here, in that we are really turning on what is the user generated content, the UGC part of the business, that basically invites all the great content creators and folks like you, for sure, to come into the network and to help them monetize. And you might say, oh, that sounds a little bit like maybe YouTube or something. But we're like going to be thousands of YouTubes and have a very significant, I'm not going to just say strategy, because strategy could be this big business word. It's simply a confidence of what we're doing in certain markets. And then, so on top of that, it's not just about, let's say, our production. It is about our distribution that helps those folks find more money, find more audience, etc. And likewise, we are definitely lighting up our league business. I've got quite a bit of a background in at a league level. I was going to point to something, in Central California, there happens to be this town called Fresno, right? You're down the street in Modesto. And Fresno State just entering into the Pac-12. Of course, my alma mater, San Diego State, has as well. And that's a very interesting topic of conversation in of itself. We do have a certain amount of media credentials in the pro and collegiate sports, of course, but we're spawning and or partnering with leagues that are, again, either existing or originating as opportunities. And it's those things that already have incredible fanfare, or we're unlocking that fanfare. And part of the reason and the way we're doing is because of our reach and our niche marketing and those types of things. So, at the end of the day, that's where you'll see our leagues like the Pig Racing League, as an example, the National Pizza League. We're talking about, in that case, every single town in North America. And so there's modeling behind all of that. There's competition, there's amazing talent, and reasons for them to succeed. And it more or less is scaling by plan. And we're just excited about it. That's part of what's next. I want to call it more authentic programming versus just kind of lean back and watch. It's more things that are, a toolbox for both the businesses and consumers to enjoy and be part of. And that's, again, adjunct to, on the UGC side. So, we expect, we expect a lot of great things out of it, both at the, not just the internet and mobile level, but also OTT, which our distribution, even through Apple, Android, and Roku, et cetera, Fire, Amazon, it's there.
So back to the YouTube thing that you're talking about, you're looking. So when I got on talk radio, first, when they asked me to come on in 2018, the first question I said is, people still listen to radio? Because I didn't. I had XM. When I was down there, when they first came out, I paid $500, got a lifetime membership, never had to pay again. I don't know if you remember when that was like. I found that out.
It was early, but you were there.
Yeah, $500, got a lifetime, still have it. But what I'm getting at is, it's amazed how huge talk radio is on AM radio.
Yeah.
It's huge. We have 51 to 71,000 listeners a week.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows about my show. I'm not, that's great and everything, but you're just amazed how strong that is, because people think it's the last free press.
Right.
And if you look at TV now, or just whatever, you have CNN and MS, we won't get into all the different acronyms, but the stations that are there that are kind of dying. And then you have Fox, and you have, those two things. There needs to be more competition for Fox. I mean, that's just my take on it, with more, because I like Fox. I like those channels. I like I don't care which way you lie. Most of us are in the middle. I don't care where you live in California. We're pretty much all in the middle. You just have those little fringes on the outside that are so loud.
You're in the middle, and also in the middle of the state. It's great, but you're all over.
But if you go down there, okay, Orange County is conservative, San Diego's conservative, Central Valley. Look at the last election, how red this state went. And that's not what I'm not trying to get that side of it. I'm just saying there's avenues, because Fox really doesn't have competition when it comes to what they say. Right, another station that does exactly like them. CNN, MSNBC, all those, they're totally way over one way, and Fox is one way. There's really not one. They say they're fair and balanced, but they're not really in the middle to a certain point. They listen. I'm just saying there's a lot of competition there. I don't know what the plan is for you guys. What I was trying to get, because you were talking about YouTube and have those type of things. They're asking us to get syndicated on radio, and I'm at the point where I don't know if I want to do that. The ego thing is, I'm a syndicated.
Well, listen, you have a message, and whether it's yours or the guests or a combination, and more people would love to hear it and love to participate and be inspired by it. So I think that, again, anything that you're able to scale with effectively, that's not either costing an arm and a leg, or you can see a return on the investment, you go for it. And at that point, it's just a matter of going through the process. And it's true. I mean, there's so many different ways to, you want to say compete, and you say Fox. I mean, Fox is a very unique company, without a doubt. I think that even suggesting that there is an opportunity there, and including even Fox's name, what you might say is honoring what they have accomplished
Right.
in actually a pretty short period of time.
Yeah.
It's wild. So anyway, this
Well,
is
I'm
not
just,
necessarily
and I'm not. They have many different channels, right? They have many. I was talking more.
channels and networks, and
Yeah. There's a ton of them, but I'm just saying that there's just other ones that are dying because they talked about one thing only, and they didn't. They were not doing. If you're going to be a station, you should talk. I would love it to go back to no more opinions. Just give me the news. When we did the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and we're in different hotels, and they have different stations. Yeah, this one station that was, they just said, "Oh, by the way, this is what's going on." They didn't do their skew on it and tell you what was going on. That's what I would love the news to get back to. This is the story. You
I'm
make
with
it
you.
mine. Yeah.
Well, I can be suggestive, Ed, of the rely on ion factor. And it is about fact-based, just delivering what is the real stuff, and without the skewing. But it's hard to even comment because I'm not advocating for things to be slanted, skewed on one side or the other,
Right.
other than what's real, what's true. And for better or for worse, you bring in AI to the equation, all of a sudden something's happening in the world. We can just suggest it's a news item, and it can immediately skew in 100 different ways via an AI source, whether you want to call it through the web, through a feed, not necessarily on what is traditional TV, and that's a challenge. So to be able to be, I want to, stoking people in a sustainable manner on fact-based news. I think that's awesome. And I know that we want to support that. We want nothing more to support that, because there's, I'm going to say only a few of us left that remember old Walter Cronkite, the original channels, the original news sources.
How about Paul
even
Harvey?
though, what's that?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey, good day. Are you kidding me? I grew up.
My grandfather at his dairy every morning, turn that on in the afternoon, and I'd go in there and on the weekends in summer, and this is Paul Harvey, and that's
yeah. Hey, good impersonation.
I don't even know if I was close, but anyway.
Well, I mean,
You got the Paul Harvey part. Yeah.
But no, I mean, again, you're spot on, and that's what we call, pardon the term, but ion integrity. So it's a matter of bringing it, and we want that. I want that.
So how do you get that? Where do you go?
You have to find the right people and their mission in what they're made of. And for that matter, I don't want to say where their sources are, but there's plenty of sources. Some of it, you can call it investigative, and that isn't special, meant to turn into slanted stuff, but it's just bringing it. And how do you find it? Well, hopefully part of it is we'll find them, Ed, and they'll find us. And as long as we are then filling the pipeline and want to work with great people, with great purpose, I'm all in, and it's how you lead, and you know what leadership's all about. So, and then it's also, you want to call it surrounding yourself with the right people or good people. And chances are there's nothing wrong with them thinking in a way the same way you do, because that's good. It doesn't mean you don't have some, questions about things and whatever else about topics that you may differ on, but let's go for it, And so I want to be supportive of that.
Well, I always think that it's nice to be back to where two people who don't really agree on the same topic can talk about it.
Yeah.
Back to that. And you can tell me why my wife always asks, why do you do the podcast and everything? It's like, because I enjoy it. And what used to get me in trouble around dinner tables, my wife would be squeezing my leg because I'm asking somebody a question, why they voted a certain way. Because or whatever it is, right? I want to understand the process and
Yeah, for
why they
sure.
thought that way and everything, just so I understand it. That's
Yeah.
my
Well,
curiosity is what I
yeah,
do. I'm curious about things, and that's why I ask these questions, because a lot of people don't. And people go, man, I've seen some of your shows. You don't take anything from it. And no, you don't understand. I want to have both sides of the conversation. I want to understand everything, and
yeah,
that's how we grow as a person.
yeah, that's right. That's for sure. I mean, I look at it and I like asking, let's say, those same questions, and not out of trying to convince somebody otherwise per
Right.
se.
Correct.
It's actually the journalistic instinct. And I can tell you it's very interesting. I'm on the board or San Diego State, the Journalism Media School. And so I take a look at, and I'm not always around the students. I mean, I deal a little bit more on the leadership side, but I take a look at what their approaches are and how social media really plays a role and what they're gathering and stuff like that. But again, going back to the news and going back to journalistic integrity is critical. And any way to restore that and being steadfast about it, I think is a home run.
Yeah.
And there's various people wanting to do it. I think if that's where you're headed or part of the puzzle that you're putting together, I think that's great stuff. And again, comes down to you realize it's like, well, what about local? What about regional and national? I mean, my standpoint is from a hyper local, hyper targeted type of conversation. It's like, well, in the news, let's say a general network, there might be covering something like a homicide that's in a town that's 30 miles away, which nobody wants to hear about death. But what about my town? Now, granted, there's internet sources for that. There's platforms that cover that.
Right.
But is it opinion or is it real? And it's hard because there's so much data out there, so much sources, and everybody's a network today, right? So it's like I get the news from my next door neighbor, who's posting it on one of the platforms, social platforms. I don't need to necessarily say which one, but you know where I'm headed with that.
No, I totally.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of going forward, and I totally agree. There needs to be some things. Now, I forgot. I was trying to find it, but on all your channels, do you guys have a network for veterans?
Yeah. So today, I can tell you that from a veteran standpoint, veteran shows, and you can call them channels, the content is available on every single channel. It's just a matter of if it's going to rear itself and or if we can find it. Now, granted, there's plenty of it and some that's awesome.
Right.
At the same time, what's that?
And some that's not. But yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
They just need to grow. They need to, it's, I always tell people, get going, then get good.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, for sure. I think it's a great way. I mean, it's version 1.0, then 1.1 and all that. But so veteran stuff, it's like we've been really supportive of veteran events without a question. I mean, high regard for what you're doing in this space. But I can tell you that it then becomes, well, what do people want to consume and watch and be part of on a regular basis? And that's kind of like then the question about where it then fits in the network in terms of its distribution. And again, every channel is open for that.
I just didn't know if you had like a channel set up just for that, because I interview a lot of vets on my Helping the Brave podcast. That's another podcast I have, and in there's people who have media channels to help veterans get their message out. We're gonna have a problem here.
Yeah. Well, I think
another 9 minutes. I got another one. But I appreciate you to give me this time. All right, so where were we at before I stopped you?
No, we were talking about veterans, and I can tell you that first of all, when you're talking about being open for consumer and business uploading, it's all then fair game. We want to promote and we want to support the veterans, right?
Right.
Our ability, let's say internally, comes often by way of what is the latest story and information from our ability to deliver it at a studio or at an event. So, we created at one point, and certainly had created some content on military, but military does not necessarily mean veterans.
Correct.
And then then it becomes a question about what is that people want to watch. And then I think there is quite a bit out there. It's a matter of how it's properly dissected and embraced, and definitely a topic. Besides the things that we have done and have supported, and we're talking about like event coverage, veterans events, things that even folks like Home Depot do at a even greater scale, which we're very much into, and covering those endeavors and those initiatives. So,
because people don't know, there's like 18 million veterans. Out of about 50% of veterans own a business.
Yeah,
it's huge.
It is big.
I didn't realize that until I started my podcast, and recently when I did through Podmatch and all the stuff I do, and how many of those people are business owners. And that makes sense because we know attention to detail. We know how to do SOPs, do systems, the different things. So we're really good at that. And so for me, I think a good veteran channel or whatever would be about business and how different veteran business, how to support them, and how they can help other people with other issues that we have. But I did hear you say you're going to support my event. I just heard you said you took care of veteran events.
Yeah, I just
never.
Well, listen, I think even off air, we spoke about that a little bit, but Ed, absolutely 100%. Let's go.
Yeah, I would love that, because getting these people walking across coals on the other side, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah.
It seems so big. My wife is a nurse, and they're the worst because nothing,
doesn't that rhyme?
Yeah,
that's not a good rhyme.
They have no sympathy. They only have empathy, right? And so she's like, I know exactly. You just got to take the first step and keep going. It's not a big deal. The heat and all that. It's like, okay, well, you can say that, but when you walk up there and you see those coals, it's a different story. And the guy who puts it on, who worked for Tony Robbins for 20 years, he's like, I just got to get him to take the first step.
Yeah,
he'll keep making the rest because they're not going to stop. And it's just amazing what it's done. I mean, I saw it might change my daughter's life, change my grandson's life, and he was 7. And it's just amazing what it does. And besides the vets, that's why I tell everybody it's veterans, first responders, and their families.
Yeah. I think what's important in kind of our sort of approach and view is not just, hey, here's this event and you're experiencing it on game day and such. It's in the stories when you're talking about, okay, so how many people walk the coals, how many, and then who are they? And then let's stick the mic in front of them. They have their story and how it relates. That could be inspirational or somehow important to the viewer or listener. And besides the veterans themselves, the first responders, and it's like, let's go. I mean, and hopefully they're from all over the place, and spread the love, spread the message. So
I'm trying to even get them as they're joining now. So I'm even getting them as because I have a recruit who's a recruiter who walked last year, and he's like, can I bring my new recruits that are coming? I'm like, of course, it's open to everybody. Because if you deal with that now, you'll be so much better on the other side. And then we can also talk to them about their benefits as veterans to keep track of certain things through the military, because when you get out, you don't remember everything that happened to you. You should have a journal and write all this stuff down. But it's just one of those things that you can see the difference talking to somebody after they just walked. The moment they get on the other side, they're so jazzed, I can't believe it, and then change everything, till a week later. Because I had a friend of mine that's walked that night. He was like, this is so amazing. He's in my Rotary. And the next week I said, hey, what'd you think about the event? And he's at Rotary. He said, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
But that night you just see it in his face, because it was, and you have to do it. And I'm telling people, you have to record them.
He was mesmerized at the time. And later
it was, it's how it happens to all of us. It changes.
I was just going to say, it's nothing like it, and it's nothing close to walking on the hot sand. And we think that's tough or something like that, but
hot sand's hot.
Yeah, but coals lit.
Red, really. Right. And they have to do it at night. So we have to do it at night because they have to see the colors of the
big time.
It has to be a certain color, otherwise you could really burn your feet. But it's a unique. it's, it's actually a rite of passage for a lot of different groups.
Yeah, for sure.
Dave, it's been great having you on the show. I could spend another hour talking to you because I'm still interested in a lot more you do, and if there's any way I can get involved. So
yeah, let's do it. We're gonna we'll stay not just stay in touch, but we'll be in touch for sure. We appreciate the time, and your work is very inspirational, Ed, and I think that and I'm glad that you have a great audience. And let's keep it going.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Stay right there. Dave, do you want people to get a hold of you for anything?
No.
No, I'm just saying.
Alone.
No, I'm just saying. Such people want you just like go to LinkedIn. You can find me. I talk to people. Message here if you have anything.
Yeah.
Are you looking for anything? Because I didn't. You weren't promoting a book. You weren't promoting anything. So
there is a couple of books.
I know. I saw them on Amazon.
There's a couple. Yeah. There's a few more ahead, but listen, quite frankly,
peak performance, right? Peak performance mindset tools for leaders.
Co-authored, yes, no, but there's some new stuff coming, and it's exciting. But you could just check me out on LinkedIn, or here's my email too. It's throw me an email. I typically will respond. Just don't spam me. Dave@ions.com. 2 4-letter words, and it's be in touch.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for being here today. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.